I'd like to welcome Joanne Nelson to give us our start with an opening prayer.
I can wear them now that I took my mask off. Good afternoon, everyone. Come, Holy Spirit, come. Gracious and Holy Father, as we move forward in this third dreaming session, please give us the intellect to understand you, the reason to discern you, wisdom to find you, a spirit to know you, a heart to meditate upon you, ears to hear you, eyes to see you, and a tongue to proclaim you. And we ask this through Christ our Lord. Amen. Our Lady of Guadalupe, pray for us.
So on behalf of the Dreaming Committee, I want to thank you for your dedication to the process, either by participating in all 3 sessions or watching the recordings and joining us after that. You may be new to our parish or considering joining our parish. Your input is welcomed and valued. Mariana Carrera will be leading the online session today. And for all of us, at this time, she will provide us with a summary of our first 2 sessions, including the results of session 2. Mariana?
All right, so I am sharing my screen. If you're in the church and you're not able to see this very well, I sincerely apologize. We made sure to email it to everyone as well, so feel free to take a look. But I'd like to cover a bit what we've heard in our session so far, and especially in session 2. So thank you so much for all the engagement so far. We've had a lot of feedback, both in the sessions and also through emails, and people have reached out to us. Based on session 2, we grouped together the feedback that we received into 3 categories. And don't worry too much about reading what's here. Like I said, it's all been emailed to you, and I'm going to run through it a little quickly. So we heard a lot of feedback about the building, which is really what this dreaming process is about. This is the beginning of imagining what our parish building is going to look like. This is feeding into what we're going to imagine our parish is going to be like. So this is only the beginning. Many more conversations will follow. We also took note of a lot of comments around ministries and activities that people want to see, as well as a lot of ideas about how things can happen online and the way we can use technology. All of that feedback was documented and captured. We're going to focus on the building related feedback because that's the focus of these 3 sessions, but we did not lose any of that. So thank you so much for all the wonderful ideas you've been bringing forward. So just a reminder of the values that came up in session 1, because they were the focus of the session 2 discussions as well. So we grouped all the values that we spoke about in session 1 into these general umbrellas of welcoming, connection, inclusion, supportive, sacred, flexible and modern and past integrated, as well as vibrant. This has been guiding what we imagine our parish building is going to be like, and what the future of our parish is going to embody in fulfillment, of course, of the mission of our church. So we also had different categories in session 2 feedback. So we spoke about the values, and as many of you will remember, we split up into groups speaking about different values and how building features or how different things we do could fulfill those values. And they group together really nicely. Almost all of them, if not all the groups, talked about how important it is to design a very welcoming building, and talked about how building features can create intimacy or spaces of connection, and can make you feel invited. Many groups spoke about the foyer and how important that is. That's the first place where people come in. It's the introduction to our parish building. People want to see it larger. They want it to be inclusive. Some suggested a welcome center, or somewhere where people could be introduced and welcomed. Comfortable features such as chairs, or creating a neutral space so that it's not intimidating to come in, were all part of that discussion. I don't know if I've ever seen a place so enthusiastic about coffee. 8 of the groups, I don't remember how many groups we had in total, but 8 of them specifically asked for a cafe or a coffee shop or something along those lines. And it was really highlighted that spaces of connection outside of sacred space often feature coffee. People like to talk about that, talk over their coffee, over their drinks. They want somewhere comfortable where they can feel at home, want spaces for lunches and meals. There were also some suggestions to bring in bookstores into the parish, maybe connect it with a bookshop. But uh, that environment of a place where we can have coffee and connect with each other was clearly really important to many of the groups. People also brought up ideas around having a chapel or a small space for worship. Now, some people suggested it should be outside. Some people wanted something inside. Some people wanted a sacred space that could be partitioned and be really flexible. But people spoke about how what they wanted out of it was a small space for worship, or where they could have adoration, or somewhere small that they could have access to at any time of the day or night. So that came up too. There were a number of groups that spoke about different things that might enable people to participate in Mass. So that might play into some very specific features or very specific needs. For example, people suggested a room for adults that is away from crowds because they might not feel comfortable being in the main sacred space when it's very full, or somewhere where children could be, like a crying room or a nursing room, a sensory corner, a calming space. There are different needs that people might have that might pull them away from sitting within the main sacred space without wanting to actually leave the Mass. So there were building features that were talked about that could help people and give them the flexibility to be present without, having an all or nothing. You're in the main space with the large crowd, or you're not there at all. So that did come up in the conversation in different ways. People also talked about the importance of a large space. Generally, as a large gathering space, people want places for community. They want places where we can sit together and have meals as a large group. Maybe it could be partitioned and be flexible. Someone suggested that it could be a refuge in the event of a disaster, but definitely also that it should be reachable without having to climb up a hill or go outside. A place for community gathering was highlighted as being very important. People also spoke about outreach, family, and youth features. Those are important ministries and activities and communities that might need their own spaces. So people talked about how youth might want a hangout space where they can feel at home, that it's theirs. Children who are in a learning situation, maybe in faith formation, they need more space to play and be more active. Parents, play groups, multi-purpose rooms, learning spaces, somewhere for quiet conversations, meeting rooms. There's a lot of different activities that people see happening in our parish in the future, and they'd like to see space that could be flexible and used for that. There's also some discussion around accessibility, which is personal passion of mine. They talked about things like having an accessible main entrance so that you don't have to go around to a back door, a side door, like you don't belong. An elevator, making sure that there's access everywhere in the building for everybody, no matter what your mobility needs are. And that includes things like accessibility to the altar. Having level floors was a suggestion, visible, accessible washrooms, a water fountain, even things like showers, which would be potentially used for community outreach. and reserved accessibility seating. Those are ideas that came out. That's of course a big conversation, but something to consider because people want to make sure that we all have access to our. And of course, there was some conversation around efficiency. Some people talked about how we could be using the space that we have a lot better. Now, the folks who are there in person, I know you'll be able to see that in real time today. Folks who are online, if you've been here, you can imagine your experience and see, you know, what are the spaces that we could actually use better that aren't as accessible now. Perhaps a better use of the loft spaces, changing the exits in a more productive way, or giving people access to a neutral space as in a direct way, as opposed to kind of having to go around an entire sacred space. So there's a lot of possibilities there. Lots of ideas came in. And of course, there was a mention around the outdoors. People talked about how they wanted a playground or picnic tables. There were some suggestions for what to do with the bell tower. I'm sure we'll be talking a lot about that in future. People suggested having gardens or to make the place more welcoming, or generally just make it look nice outside so that it feels as good outside as it does when you come in. Now, as a reminder to everyone, we did document all feedback. Just to give you some ideas about the other things people spoke about, they talked about having greeters at the door, having a Wi-Fi enabled parish. Outdoor signs was a frequent topic, meeting people where they're at, scavenger hunts, family activities, online tours of the building, and staying digitally connected. There was a lot of really great conversation. We're not focusing on that here because we're here specifically to dream about the building, but we haven't lost that. And it's definitely a conversation this parish will be coming back to. So thank you.
Thank you, Mariana. We did have a little technical issue here in the church when we started, but thankfully our irreplaceable tech team here was able to bring us back on. Most participants have received copies of the slides as well, so they will be able to review those. But thank you for your in-depth presentation and providing us the opportunity for clarity as we move forward, as we start to think about the information we've gathered to date and what we want to use it for. What will this inform us moving forward? Today, we are very pleased to have Joe Zareski, Sarah Williams, and Tabitha Rose over here from ZZAP Architecture and Planning, joining us to give us an introduction and a presentation, as well as guide us through the dreaming process of physical space. Please join me in welcoming this group.
Thanks very much, Kathy. Let's see if I get this mic up a little bit. There we go. How's that? That's fine. Okay. Thanks very much. Good afternoon, everybody, both in person and online. My name is Joe Zareski. I'm representing ZZAP Consulting this afternoon. First of all, thank you very much for having us. On behalf of Zara and Tabitha, we're really pleased to be here. I believe we have a slideshow, and maybe I could just speak to the slideshow as we go along. I'd like to introduce who we are first, and maybe our connections to Dartmouth, and specifically some of the connections to the church. So ZZAP Consulting was formed about 4 years ago here in Dartmouth, Nova Scotia. We're a staff of about 25. We have architects and planners, and we specialize in mostly development type projects here in the city, but also do a lot of work with community groups. And so we're very pleased to be able to take some of that experience and bring it to St. Peter's Church. So I want to first of all also thank and commend the Dreaming Committee for the work they've done so far. I honestly don't think we could have done it better than you guys have already. The articulation and your vision and your philosophy, I think, will really make today's session very meaningful and productive, and we're really excited that we can help you with that. There it is. So this is our opening slide. If we go to the next slide, that would be great. Here we go. So this is just a little bit of a profile about ZZAP. If we could go to the next slide, I'll get into a little bit of an anecdotal story before we talk about what we're going to do this afternoon. Next slide, please. Perfect. Okay. So some of you have already come up to me and said that you might know one or both of my parents. The Zareskis and the McNeils, my dad's side of the family, have been in Dartmouth quite a while. My father grew up on Creighton Park Road, and back in the 50s and 60s, my grandfather, whom I'm named after, never actually met, but was good friends of a gentleman named Mr. Hooper. And Mr. Hooper had immigrated to Nova Scotia from Britain and actually boarded with my grandfather and my dad's family for some time before he established himself here in Dartmouth. Well, Mr. Hooper was an architect, and he is the one that actually designed this building that we're standing in. And so my grandfather, who I'm named after, was good friends with this architect, and so, you know, the ability to look through Mr. Hooper's drawings and help you today, we're very proud of that. I grew up in Dartmouth as well, and went to St. Clement's Church and went to St. Peter's here when it was still junior high school in the Dartmouth school system. So very familiar with the area, and hoping that some of that background knowledge will be able to put forward, and I guess in our activities this afternoon. The next slide is a little bit of the work that ZZAP has done in our community. So we do a lot of community work, both for non-for-profits and recreation facilities. So you'll notice Banook Canoe Club there, Brightwood Golf Club, the community centers for the YWCA, and in Hammonds Plains, also a community center there as well. So we have actually done a little bit of work for a church in Halifax also. And so this session that we're going to do today comes out of some of these visioning sessions that we do for these other community groups. So the format here is going to be really interactive and fun. So the next slide is actually the game board. Oh, it hasn't come up yet. What we've done is we've basically taken the floor plans that Mr. Hooper drew back in the late 60s and try to clean them up a little bit so that they are more abstract. We don't want to get into too much of a technical discussion today. What today is more about a pre-design exercise. And what a pre-design exercise is, we're not trying to figure out what this building will look like, but now trying to materialize the vision that you guys have set out so well in the last two sessions using actual little game pieces. And the game pieces are the spaces that the Dreaming Committee gave us as far as what they believe they need to fulfill those functions that have been articulated so far. So this is a really exciting time because we're now starting to physically see how your vision can be fit either inside or outside the building. And so that's the reason why we wanted to show the existing floor plate, because perhaps there's spaces inside the building that can be redefined, and maybe they're not used as well as they could be, or could be used for other purposes in addition to what they're being used today. So if I could give everybody a piece of advice today is, generally what we see in these types of sessions is a long list of spaces, a long list of requirements, and then eventually reality will start to set in as far as how many spaces you can actually afford, or what's actually practical to fit inside a building or on your site. So think about flexibility. When we put a space in or around the building, is that the only purpose for the use of that space? Can it be used for other purposes? And can it be used for 3 or even 4 purposes? Because at the end of the day, that is probably going to make that space more feasible for you. So we're really excited to be facilitating this afternoon. We have no preconceived notions of what this should be. This is entirely a blank slate, and we look forward to helping you. Have a great day.
Thank you very much. And I hope everyone has found that to be informative as we think about where we're moving with this process. So thank you all for joining us today, and your guidance and expertise will be very much appreciated. Today, obviously, we're both online and in person, and a reminder, thank you. Technology works when you work with it. And obviously, somebody was a little taller than myself. A reminder that today is not about planning. We are very much in the dreaming and the visioning process. Even though we will be working with floor plans and have tours of the building, it is to help us to get clear about the space we are dreaming about. After the dreaming process, another group who has not yet even been decided will take these ideas to the next stage. Some of the samples that Joe showed, might have had a tag for a particular group. We're looking at the multi-use of our space, not designated for one group, but being able to use it for many different purposes. As we move into our sessions today, we want to remember the enlightening presentation from Fiona O'Reilly, Director of Global Strategy and Divine Renovation, in session number 2. And Fiona's joining us in person today from England. Welcome, Fiona. Fiona was here to give us some information in our last session about key trends that will impact the kind of spaces that we will need in the future. And let me just remind you of some of the things. Our use of technology and buildings will be different. We will need to shift from simply gathering to connecting. Church membership will become countercultural. Buildings will need to serve mission, not sustain it. In person will need to become even more personal, and both and approach to in-person and digital, to name just a few. I want you to keep these things in mind today as we move through our activities. So what will happen? Online, you will have a discussion that builds on session 1 and session 2. Remember, we are dreaming of a parish building that will serve our mission and meet our needs for reaching people today and into the future. We need to discern what God is calling us to do. Your focus online will be, how do we see ourselves and our community accessing and interacting with the parish building now and into the future? You will have approximately an hour for discussions, and I will join you online for a final debrief. In person here, there will be tours of the current space at the St. Peter's site, guided by Roy Palaco, our operations manager, who is with us today. And members from ZZAP Architecture and Planning will guide us through a process using floor plans, looking at how the current footprint can fill the needs of the future, as well as identify any additional or what spaces we are dreaming of. The takeaways from both sessions will be combined to inform us moving forward in this dreaming process. So online now, you will move to an overview for 5 to 7 minutes with Mariana, and then you will move into your breakout rooms, looking at how you see yourselves, ourselves, and our community accessing and interacting with the parish building now and into the future. Here in the church, we will gather together, and half of our group will take a guided tour of the St. Peter site of Our Lady of Guadalupe, and the other half will travel to the parish center to work with the ZZAP team, focusing on the space in a creative way. And we will reverse after that. So those who will be working with ZZAP will then have a tour after. We will be recording some of the in-person creative sessions, which will be available next week for anyone to review. So those of you who are online will not miss some of what we are doing. You will get to see that. I look forward to hearing a summary of your online discussions at the debrief and the creativity of the in-person sessions. Both groups have fun with this and enjoy the process as we look with great excitement to the future. Thank you.
Okay, I have to say, I'm so excited. We're here at session 3 and we've got a really good crowd online and in person. I've been a part of this parish since I was a small child, and these are the conversations I've always dreamt about having, and I'm so happy right now, honestly. So we're about to go into a conversation for that essentially Kathy described, and I wanted to give you a few prompts and a few things to think about. This is meant to be a fairly open-ended conversation. In case you haven't noticed, between sessions 1, 2, and 3, we've essentially been funneling the conversation. We start out with this really broad concepts of, what is the mission? What is the Great Commission that we've been sent on? What are the values of this parish? How do we fulfill that? And more we get into detail, making that more concrete. What are the important rooms or spaces? So here we are trying to fill in the details and dream up as much as possible what's important for the future of our parish building. Oh, I need to share my screen. I'm so sorry. I'm too excited. All right. That says I'm sharing. So building on sessions 1 and 2, you've heard what you've been part of those conversations, or you've watched the videos, we had a little overview. What is it that we've missed? What are the details? What are the features that really matter? How do we see ourselves in our community accessing and interacting with the parish building? And I ask that question because I think that's going to help us imagine the building in a really concrete way, see ourselves going through it, and see what are the details and the features that really matter and really make a difference. So you might already have some ideas. You might be bursting with ideas you're ready to share. That's okay. Please bring those up. I'm going to share some more questions and prompts, maybe to help us think about the things that we might have missed in this conversation, or maybe we need to fill in a little more. So imagine yourself or someone else in our future parish building. What are those features that matter? You might want to think about things like, when do you see yourself coming to the parish building, or who comes with you? How do you get there? How does the building design interact with how you get there? What time of day is it? How do you enter and move around in the space? What is important about that? What are you doing? What are the different things you could be doing? There might be a lot of things. Who else do you see coming to the building? What needs might they have that we should consider? How can we be flexible enough to meet those needs for the next 40 or even beyond for many, many years? So those are some questions to think about. We are a growing community, and we expect and hope to build this community and make it more inclusive and bring in, like the mission calls us, make disciples. there's a lot of different ways to think about the needs that people might have. So I thought I would share a few examples, some case scenarios that might prompt some ideas in terms of what might be important for a building. Now, if you've already got a lot to think about or thinking about your own experience in the parish is enough and you've got a lot to share, please don't get overwhelmed or bogged down in the details of everybody's different experiences. This is just to get us thinking a little outside the box. So consider, we might have in our parish in the future a single mom with a small child. She depends on a stroller and the Route 55 on the bus to get to the parish building. And I don't know if other folks on here have used the Route 55. I've used it a lot, and service is really limited. It runs about once an hour for not the entire day. And if you depend on that, you spend a lot of time waiting for the bus. Now, her child is small and energetic and loves to be involved in everything, but sometimes gets overwhelmed by crowds. So how would the building serve them? How would building features affect their experience? Let's consider another scenario. Maybe we have a man who's visually impaired and uses a guide dog. Likes to walk to church when he can. Maybe he takes a cab when he can't. Loves being a part of the music ministry and volunteering in Alpha. How might the building design affect his experience? Or perhaps there's an older couple who just moved to the city recently and they've been away from the church for many, many years. A little nervous about coming in, but they're really looking for community and returning to the faith. Don't really know what to expect. One of them uses a hearing aid and they're not really how they're going to interact with everything, but they really want to try. So again, how might the building affect their experience? Or another scenario. We have a young adult who's homeless, sometimes couch surfing, relies on food banks or pantries like St. Vincent de Paul, might have some challenges with mental health and needs support, but really this person is looking for a reliable, safe place where they feel that they can belong. Not sure what specific needs they might present, and that might change on a day-to-day. But again, if they come to us, how might the parish building how might they interact with the parish building? So just some ideas to get a concept of, there's many different experiences, and I'm sure you all have your own experiences that would influence this conversation. Again, we're coming back to what are the features that matter? Open-ended conversation, really looking forward to hearing what you have to say. At 2:45, we're going to come back. Facilitator is going to report back what's shared in the small groups. If the conversation wraps up and you want to take a little break before 2:45, feel free to do so, and I'm going to leave it at your discretion to do that. So I'm going to stop sharing now, but I'm hoping we're all going to get split into small groups now.
To the desperate eyes and reaching hands, to the suffering and the lame, to the ones the world has cast aside, where you want me, I will be. I will go, I will go, I will go, Lord, send me to the world, to the lost, to the poor and hungry. Take everything I am, I'm clay within your hands. I will go, send me. Let me not be blind with privilege. Give me eyes to see the pain. Let the blessing you poured out on me not be spent on me in vain. Let this life be used for change. I will go, I will go, I will go, Lord, send me to the world, to the lost, to the poor and hungry. Take everything I am, I'm clay within your hands. I will go, send me. I will go, I will go, I will go, Lord, send me to the world, to the lost, to the poor and hungry. Take everything I am, I'm clay within will go, send me.